So talk to me about how you think digital IDs are one of the, maybe a sub-pillar of the Carney model for the pillars of the financial system.
Well, I would say in this context, I think the digital ID is a key enabler of the surveillance, knowing what everyone is doing at the transactional level and being able to tweak that micromanagement based on a person's activity, because the digital ID isn't just limited to the financial system, right? It's like your travel.
Imagine waking up one day and finding out that your existence is essentially erased because you didn't comply with a new system. This is what some experts are warning about. They say the only way to prove your legal identity will be through a specific system, and if you don't participate, the state and private sector will consider you non-existent. Not participating means exclusion from the economic system and everything else. This situation, they argue, is a classic problem-reaction-solution scenario. The solution, a new financial governance system, is already developed, waiting for a disruptive event to implement it. About a year ago, during the Global Finance Summit in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron declared that the world needs a public financial shock to combat global warming. Around the same time, World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the need for a global economic overhaul. He stated that every country and industry must transform, calling for a great reset of capitalism. Investigative journalist Whitney Webb has highlighted that what we are witnessing is the birth of a new international monetary system intended to replace the current Bretton Woods system based on blockchain technology for total surveillance and censorship. Whitney's concerns are drawn from statements made by global elites and WEF affiliates like Macron, as well as figures like Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada, and UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. Carney mentioned that the three pillars of this new world order are digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and environmental, social, and governance, ESG criteria. In a recent discussion with Mark Goodwin, editor-in-chief at Bitcoin Magazine, Whitney warned that all world governments are pushing this new world order agenda, supported by the ultra-rich and powerful, including Silicon Valley executives. These elites aim to tokenize all assets and natural resources, transforming everything from forests to rivers into commodities traded by the super-rich, consolidating their power and moving towards total domination. During her conversation with Goodwin, Whitney discussed the critical aspects of these plans, particularly digital IDs and the tokenization of the natural world, warning that Schwab and his allies are close to realizing their grand vision, which could have disastrous consequences for us all. As we bring you clips from this revealing discussion, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more content like this. Your engagement significantly helps with the YouTube algorithm and contributes immensely to the channel's growth. Thank you, and enjoy.
So talk to me about how you think digital IDs are one of the, maybe a sub-pillar of the Carney model for the pillars of the financial system.
Well, I would say in this context, I think the digital ID is a key enabler of the surveillance, knowing what everyone is doing at the transactional level and being able to tweak that micromanagement based on a person's activity, because the digital ID isn't just limited to the financial system, right? It's like your travel, your health history, your career history, your education credentials, your access to telecommunications, social media, the internet. You know, with the new AI era, right, they can fuse all that data, analyze it, you know, and depending on how they develop that AI algorithm, use it to control people really in unprecedented ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see is this whole digital debt model even possible without digital IDs? Who's really been working on these projects? Is this something that's embraced by the people that are trying to build this system?
Well, I think the digital ID and the CBDC and its private sector equivalence project is something that we're always sort of intended to be the same system. So there's documents from the UN, from the BIS, and related groups that are sort of that have been working on this for years, that essentially frame one as essential to the other, using words about, this is inclusionary, the whole, I guess, marketing behind digital ID is that everyone needs a legal ID because otherwise they're unable to access essential services, right? And so the idea is we all have to be included in the system, and they directly link that to the concept of financial inclusion and banking the unbanked, which you brought up earlier. But inherently, these systems actually function in an exclusionary way based on how they've been set up. They have essentially said that this will be the only way to prove you have legal identity. And so if you don't participate in that system, as far as the state or the private sector is concerned, you don't exist. So by not participating in that system, you're inherently excluded from the economic system and really essentially everything. So you have to onboard to the surveillance state or be excluded from everything. So it's being marketed as inclusion, but it's really inherently exclusionary.
Totally. Yeah, and I think the thing that's so interesting about this debt bubble exploding is that when you know that the debt bubble is going to explode and you want to explode it into the new system, the way that you sort of trigger that into the system that you want to get the masses to go with you is you actually want to have the most debt obligations on the record, on the board, so that when the system pops, they'll all pop. When the debt bubble pops, every debt bubble will pop. It will be everything all at once. It won't just be like, oh, Japan's fine, the US is fucked. It won't work like that. Everything will pop at once. So in this weird way, you actually want to create as much debt as possible right before the pin bursts the bubble, and then you can offer this, hey, we'll service your debt 1-to-1 if you come join this new universal tokenized ledger. Just sign up here, do a selfie of your face, and give us your biometrics, and then here you are. So do you see that? Do you think that the COVID stimulus and monetary expansion was essentially a hey, this is the U.S. dollar system understanding that the global debt, this system post Bretton Woods is about to explode, so let's create as much debt as possible to then lead everybody into the new system? Are these players that are building the new system the same people that blew out the debt before?
Yeah, I think there's a correlation there. A lot of the people building this system are people that are debt barons, essentially. BlackRock in particular had a really big role to play in the whole COVID monetary situation. At the same 2019 Jackson Hole meeting where Mark Carney talked about, the new financial system to come, is when BlackRock presented their going direct paper, which was the policy that was followed essentially and exactly when COVID hit. Just a few months later. And BlackRock utilizes debt to increase its profitability and power and ownership of things around the world. And honestly, since debt's been such a big part of the control system for a long time, it's the people that can control the most debt on Wall Street and stuff tend to be the most powerful and the most successful, right? So
yeah, totally. I think that's really interesting too, because Larry Fink did literally say that the tokenization and blockchain eliminates all potential for corruption, which is really absurd when you consider that some of the closest partners to BlackRock, like JP Morgan and Bank of America, have two of the largest fines ever in the history of the United States for literal market manipulation, treasury spoofing, precious market spoofing, and then their, criminal activity in the 2007, 8, 09, debt implosion, specifically Bank of America, was almost $17 billion. This idea that blockchain just magically eliminates corruption is really absurd, and I think it runs into this idea of decentralization theater, basically, and how these companies are hiding behind these isms and ideologies of the blockchain, that it's this magical thing. And I think there's something important there that if you control basically these third party systems, like an Oracle system within an interoperable, CBDC model, a multipolarity currency model, that's all these different jurisdictions that are all connected. That connecting, mycelium basically between all of these different pods, then that becomes the trusted third party. It doesn't matter if me and you sending, currency to each other is through this trustless blockchain, if then the thing that exchanges the assets that actually are represented on the ledger, then it's just it's even more centralized.
Well, I think it's likely too that either the national governments or the UN or somebody like that is going to choose who the trusted third parties are. They're going to be the kingmakers of who gets to serve in that role. And so they're able to choose the ones that are most compliant to their needs, or the ones that they created in the first place to serve the specific purpose and things of that nature. But to think that the fact that a lot of these corrupt entities that we know are corrupt or have engaged in corruption, BlackRock, JP Morgan, et cetera, are some of the key architects of this system, to think that they would all of a sudden not engage in that activity when they're the ones building this system. It's not like they're going to build a new system that ties their hands back, They're going to be able to engage in business as usual. And I think part of the goal of the whole global carbon market thing for them is that it allows them to unlock so many new assets and so much more collateral and so much other stuff to create new debt out of, and to just sort of expand the existing models they use to just unprecedented levels, and sort of perpetuate this into infinity. I don't know. I mean, it's just really crazy to think about, but I think honestly, the reason they haven't abandoned the global carbon market is because they need that new asset class that's so enormous. Because one of the things too about the natural asset thing, at least as far as the natural asset corporation model is concerned, is that you literally just go into a forest or you go to a river or lake and you identify the natural asset, and then at no cost to you, just after identifying it, you issue shares in the natural asset, a lake, a forest, whatever, and then you sell those shares to sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, whatever, and then you have an IPO and generate all this money. I mean, it's literally just pointing out something outside and being like, this is mine, I'm going to fractionalize it and sell it to people, and you're producing money in like, out of thin air. Essentially. Yeah. And you're able to do that. I mean, the natural world is vast and huge, and they're doing this, they're financializing it all, as framing it as the only way to save the planet. Right. But really it's the only way for them to save their insane debt racket.
Right.
Thank you for tuning into DeFi Compass. We've covered a lot today. Remember, the DeFi space is ever evolving, and staying informed is key to navigating this dynamic landscape. Stay informed, stay invested, and together let's chart a course through the world of decentralized finance. I'm Johnny Hash from DeFi Compass, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy investing!